Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that, like Adam Wainwright, just can't win. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Ben Samorka.
Hey, Nate H. How you doing?
Oh, I am all right, Hambone. And, this week on the show, we're going to talk about Adam Wainwright. We're going to check in on some recent player updates. We're going to discuss the interview with Paul DeJong and what it says about Ollie and Mo. And we're going to talk about the upcoming series against the Pirates and the series against Atlanta. If you have an idea for the opening bit, tweet us at Talk About Birds. Hambone,
Yo.
It's a dull week on the field for Cardinal fans, but how are you doing? How are things going for you?
I'm fine. I'm doing well over here. Yeah. I've my schedule. I've been watching a little bit more Cardinals baseball rather than just following it on my phone. Yeah. I know it's easy to fall off because they've been bad and everything like that. But I still get excited for the little individual matchups and the Gorman coming back and watching Mason win and Walker and. I don't know.
It was a good win last night, too.
It was a good win last night. And I think there's not a lot to watch and get excited about on the pitching mound right now, but there's still a lot to watch on the player or the position player side. And I don't know, there's enough young talent that is still developing on the big league roster that my nerdy baseball, I'm not more excited. I'd much rather the Cardinals be winning. I'll be clear about that. Yeah. But I love watching young players develop, especially young players who I think are going to be with the Cardinals for a long time. So I don't know. I find joy in that. And then I also am pretty quick with my remote and flipping around watching, maybe the Braves or the Dodgers or a team that is talented. I think this whole thing that's going on in the AL West has been some pretty good drama over the past couple of weeks with the Mariners and the Rangers and, the collapse of the Angels and all that. So I find, I'm always watching baseball, even if the Cardinals are having a once in 30 year terrible season. I'm still there.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, this was maybe the least exciting version of the Wynn and Walker call-up duo than we were expecting, but it's there. And it's just something to be excited about and something to watch.
With Waino and Pujols and Yachty retiring and the young guys coming over and the quote unquote changing of the guard happening, I did not expect. I expected a hiccup because Gorman, Walker, and Wynn and Burley and whoever else, Liberatore and all these guys are so young. Of course, they're not going to just come out and dominate. But I don't think I expected. I mean, nobody expected this big of a speed bump. Or a shipwreck, or I don't know,
more than a speed bump, maybe. Catastrophe is closer to the word than speed bump.
Yeah,
yeah, of course. I mean, we've been talking about it all season, right? No one saw this coming. But to your point, baseball's still fun, and we're still watching. I am a big fan of the J-Rod show, and what the Mariners have been doing has been worth watching. And like you said, there's still fun in these Cardinal games. And, the reality is that while we are expecting a pretty fundamentally large off season as far as the pitching staff goes, this offense that they're putting out, for better or worse, is essentially what we're going to see next year, right?
Yeah.
This is the lineup. Now, I believe, I don't think that this is even conspiracy belief, but I do think that the Cardinals are prioritizing not winning right now.
Yeah.
So we're seeing some lineups and some play that I think is not what we'd be seeing if this team was, if their record was reversed. Right. I think you could argue even that some of the veteran players, Arenado, Goldie, they would never say this, but I wouldn't even blame them for maybe not going 100% all day, every day right now, right? Like, we need them healthy and good for next year.
If you're Nolan Arenado or Paul Goldschmidt or Wilson Contreras or maybe that's the end of the list. If you're a high dollar position player and you're mathematically out of it and you get hurt gravely in the last month and a half of this season, obviously mistakes happen, accidents can happen, anything could happen, but that it's pretty stupid. Yes.
Yeah, an accident, an injury from an extreme exertion situation.
Right.
Yeah, now that said, like, I'm just saying this. I mean, if you look at Arenado, he's been, offensively it's been up and down, but his defense is fully back at this point. So it's kind of, the first half of the season, he was really struggling. And if you keep an eye on DRS rankings and things like that, he's starting to fly up, and I think you can see it on the field too. So he's not, I'm not saying, I would not be accusing these guys of like tanking themselves or like
no
not caring to win, but frankly, like, I don't blame them if maybe they're not coming in at 100% all of the time, and then starting Mater over a 85% Gorman. Like, they would not do that if the Cardinals were in contention right now, but they aren't. And we want Gorman playing basically only at 100% right now. So let's sit him. Like, Mater is, I don't think Mater would be on this team right now if they were still in contention.
No.
But I mean, who knows? He's been on the team. He's been DFA'd 3 times this year. He has some sort of magnet to this team. But like, point being, like, you see a lot of frustration from the fan base for things like that, and I get it, because you're watching the game, you want to watch a good game, you want them to win,
right?
But
I mean, honestly, if the Cardinals were, if their record was flipped, Jordan Walker might not be on the team. Mason Wynn might both be back in AAA, because let's not shy away from that. They have not been, or Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn hasn't been up enough to have any opinion, but Jordan Walker is getting valuable reps at the MLB right now, at the level right now, but he's not been a great player. It's okay. This is a great year for him to marinate and get better and figure out the league and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, this team is constructed in a kind of a goofy way right now. I think they're being deployed in kind of a goofy way right now. And I assume Ali Marmol and John Mozeliak are prioritizing health over everything. At least they should be.
But hey, did you see that throw from Walker, right field, throwing a guy out at third base?
He has a ridiculous arm.
Yeah, it's incredible. We see a lot about Ellie and Wynn and their arms from the shortstop position, but I mean, that throw from Walker was wild, and great touch by Arenado. He slides up the line a foot or two to get it a little bit closer to the runner, sweeps back on the tag. I mean, it was incredible.
That's something that we don't talk about a lot, but I think you nailed it. Is Arenado is a sneaky good, like, athletic tagger. Like, he has a very like a sixth sense type ability to get guys out around the bag. He's awesome.
His awareness and sense of space, right?
Yes.
That, like, he in that millisecond recognizes that if he takes 2 steps forward, he'll be able to catch the ball just a little bit more in line. It's like you're going to see that you got these 2 trajectories coming at you. You've got the runner coming at you and you've got the ball coming at you, and being able to, like, perfectly in that moment,
having like the sense and the awareness. Like, if I were to do that, I would undoubtedly be trucked by the base runner and hit in the chest by the ball at the same time, spitting out teeth on the ground.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. So, like, it's that sort of stuff. Walker wasn't really an outfielder. He's learning the position at the major league level.
Yeah.
I think you're totally right. I bet he's probably sent back down to AAA over the summer if with his current performance, and if the Cardinals were competing. But he's also part of the reason why they're not in competition. So,
and he's hitting just well enough that I think it's like, it's not totally demoralizing, right? And Really, like I believe that Jordan Walker is going to be an at least average outfielder at some point here relatively soon, because he's such a freak athletically, because that arm can make up for a lot of mistakes, and he's sneaky quick. But he's been there. He just hasn't done it long enough. Nolan Jones, obviously I pay attention to the Rockies. Nolan Jones had a very similar thing kind of happen to him, where he was a corner infielder his whole baseball life, comes up with the Rockies, and the Rockies do what the Rockies do, and they make somebody play a position they've never played at the big league level.
Of course.
But he's 4 or 5 years older than Jordan Walker. He's had more reps in general with higher level baseball. And I think that Jordan Walker, not to compare these two players, I don't know why I'm doing this specifically, but to compare these two players, Walker is much more athletic. It's going to come. We're going to be very happy about his outfield play. It's going to make his F-WAR and B-WAR jump through the roof. But it's just not here yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that play. He won like an L play of the week or some honorific like that earlier in the season off of that play. He made the full extension dive. It's in there. We can see why he was regarded as a pretty good defensive third baseman. So it's not like he's a guy who's been considered without a position, which, happens to big sluggers like him. It's a fun nickname. Should we just call him Big Slugger?
Yeah, that's super good. I can't believe that it took you to meander onto that
Big
name.
Slugger.
Yeah. I like that.
I can tell in your voice that you think it's great.
It's really good. I'll keep saying it. Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at Big Slugger's stats for the year, the thing that sticks out to me is that he does have a 104 WRC plus. So he is still hitting at 4% higher than the league average. And obviously we all have much higher expectations, but that's pretty incredible for a 21-year-old at the major league
Exactly.
level.
He's 21 years old. He
just turned 21 this year.
Turned 21. He's playing in a ballpark that's hard to perform in offensively. He's learning a new position, and it's his first time around, the major leagues. So, I think he's doing a great job. I have no notes. It's going to come, and I think that if we're trying to look for the grass is greener of the season, it might be the Jordan Walker MLB marination that is the real win of this season when we're looking down the line in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, that MLB marination, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's like a nice Italian rub or something,
A nice Italian rub. That sounds right. Yeah.
Bottle of Italian dressing poured over a flank steak.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
So it's a wet rub from a bottle. All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'd eat it.
Yeah.
I'd take a bite off Big Slugger.
I think it's going to stick. Yeah. We've been calling him things like Jaywalker, Air Jordan, all these derivatives of other people's nicknames.
Yeah.
No one, let's go back to kindergarten, Big Slugger.
All right.
This is good.
This is good.
Well, I got a problem of my own, Hambone. So, I've been training for this half marathon that I'm supposed to do in 1 month.
I don't pay attention to your life, Nate. I don't know what you've been doing.
Well, I assume the listeners need this sort of content. And I got something called runner's knee. And my knees
old
hurt.
Bitch.
I know. I'm feeling my age, Ben. Obviously, I'm in my prime. So this is something that will merely be an actual roadblock, hopefully not a speed bump, not a catastrophe.
Sure.
But your boy's been half limping around the house the last few days. So
see, that's the great thing about podcasting is that you can fight through those injuries.
I'm in my prime here, sitting down, talking into a microphone. So I'll be sure to keep you and everyone updated on how this progresses.
No, I'm very emotionally invested into the well-being of your foot or whatever.
My knee. Thank you.
Yeah.
Call it runner's knee, I guess, to make people feel better about themselves.
Yeah, that sounds like you just got an old cranky knee.
You know how I got it? From running, because I was doing something physical.
There you go.
Yeah.
Or you were so unphysical before that your body is in absolute state of shock because you now began to move.
It could be that. It could. I don't think it's that, but it might be. And my body's shutting down.
I'm pretty sure. You look.
Yeah.
You're on death's door. It starts with the knee.
Well, the problem is also all the skin falling off my face. So that might be a clue too.
Chunks.
Yeah. It's a pretty horrible look right now. But this isn't a video podcast, although it kind of is. We put it on TikTok. All right. Well, let's talk about what we said we're going to talk about. All right, Wainwright. We've talked a lot about Wainwright.
Yeah.
And if you're just joining the show, our general opinion has been throw him out there every 5 days. I'll let him pitch every single day if he wants to. Like, just let Waino in how he wants to. If he wants out, let him out. If he wants in, let him in. And that said, it had been quite difficult to watch for most of the season. However, finally, I think for his own mental state and us as fans, we've had a little bit, like just a little bit of a glimmer of hope here from of a Waino exiting the season with some degree of competence.
Yeah.
Because I think the nightmare scenario is the last, he just gives up 8 runs per game until the end of the season and is pulled in the second inning of his last start or something like that. And so I know you've got a couple numbers here, but if you've been watching the games, you can see there is something a little bit finally better about Waino over the last few starts.
Yeah. And I mean, this kind of just goes back into the conversation we're talking of the changing of the guard. It's just not going as smoothly as we wish it was. It's been clunky and kind of sad. And seeing Wainwright mad is like seeing a parent mad or something. Or not even, I don't even know. He's the fun uncle of the Cardinals, right? And seeing the fun uncle not buy fireworks and porno mags for his nieces and nephews or whatever the fun uncle does is a bummer.
All right. No, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. So you and I are cousins, so we share a lot of family.
Yeah. We don't have a fun uncle.
I was gonna say, who'd you have buying you porno? Was it my dad? I don't think it was my dad.
No, all our uncles.
Your dad didn't buy me porno.
No, they're all lame. This is actually a criticism of the men in our family.
That's a good point.
Like, did any of the patriarchs ever give you a firework?
I mean, but not in a not like in a cool sort of hey kid, here's some M80s,
Yeah, go blow up a mailbox. Don't get into trouble.
Do you ever blow up a mailbox?
No, I was too afraid.
We got really into those sparkler bombs for quite a while.
I had a phase, yeah,
and never blew up a mailbox. It's a federal crime, I'm not going to jail for this. But I did blow up a road, those the tube,
the fat cones.
Yeah, orange tubes with 2 or 3 silver stripes around them.
Yeah.
Fat cones. Not a cone at all, but definitely fat. I blew one of those up. It didn't blow into pieces or anything, but it did blow up. It went up 5 feet in the air. It was fun.
Well, good for you. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
But dangerous. Thanks. I'd call the cops on you.
Well, I self-reported.
Thank God. Anyways, Adam Wainwright. What was the point I was even trying to make here? Adam Wainwright has been good.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Okay, kind of.
Adam Wainwright has, in my eyes, earned himself 2 wins. 2 of his last 3 starts have been solid. But the offense has been completely dead. The offense has been dead for a month at this point. I know over the last 2 weeks that the offense's OPS is under 600, which is obviously a big pile of dog crap. But in his first good performance, which was last week against the Mets, the Cardinals scored 2 runs and lost to the Mets 4-2. And against the Padres, which I thought was even more impressive because I know the Padres are underperforming this year, but they still have 1 through 7 hitters that you'd be afraid of, and some kind of plug-in guys that can do some damage as well. And he only gave up 1 earned run, and the Cardinals ended up losing that game 4-1. So I don't know. I feel bad for Waino. I think that like we've put a lot of emphasis on the wins, and I think you and I would imagine a good chunk of the people who are listening to us right now are kind of wins don't really matter that much. So I do think like we're kind of making a lot of huff about nothing. But the fact that he's put up quality starts and not gotten the win, that's how baseball goes. That's why it's really hard to get to 300 wins. That's why we probably, after Justin Verlander retires, if he gets to 300 wins, I would probably say we'll never see another 300 win baseball player, at least in our lifetimes, unless there's some dramatic change to how wins are scored or something. I don't know. And really, I think it'll just continue to go the way of they're devalued, and it's kind of a nice shiny number out there. But yeah, it's just, I guess it's kind of too bad. I do think I'm feeling a lot better about Waino's final month of being a Cardinal. I'm kind of getting curious of what's going to happen. I feel like there has been less fanfare than I would have expected. Not that Waino is an all-time great like Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina, but he's a guy. He's like a made man in St. Louis, in the NL Central for sure, and I feel like he's well liked throughout MLB. So I'm kind of surprised that he is not getting he's kind of, I mean, he's rumbling and bumbling his way out of this season, and I don't know, it's been kind of a stinker.
Yeah, 100%. So, side note real quick, Justin Verlander's at 254 wins. I don't think he's going to get to 300. He's going to need to pitch for he needs almost 50 more wins, and he's 41. I know he's been good, but
if I had to, I don't know if I'd put any money on this, but I think JV's going to pitch till he's like 44.
We said that about Waino. Now I know there's this is a different tier. I know it that, is. but still. So we'll see though. But I agree with you.
Still got like his velo is still like 96, 97.
It's true.
So he hasn't even had his like massive decrease in stuff era happen yet. So that being said, I don't think it's likely. I think it's less likely to happen than it is to happen. But I do think that he's the only player even worth having that conversation about.
Yeah. I agree. And I agree that I don't think he's going to get there. And I don't think we'll ever see another 300 win player. You never know. Like, of course, we would have said what Ohtani's doing, you would never see. And here we are, but more on Ohtani later. But, we'll see. But back to Waino, I suspect that all of this, your observation of zero fanfare, I think 2 things. One, I do suspect it's going to ramp up from the Cardinal side here going into the last month. I know there's a number of giveaways at the ballpark. Like I'm expecting a lot more from the Cardinals here as it gets closer. But two, I think it's mostly because he's been so bad. Like it's really hard to for all these other teams. Do you do the ceremony honoring him and then, half an hour later go and beat the shit out of him? Like, I don't know. I think it just changes the tone on everything. And I do think maybe we will, a lot for a guy like him, who's not like Pujols was getting like plaques and shit at every, but he's an inner circle Hall of Famer. Yachty got a little bit from the Reds and the Pirates and teams that he has really lit up over the years. And I'm expecting a little bit of that. I think that I could be wrong, but there's a few more series against NL Central teams. I suspect that we'll see something from those teams. Maybe it's just a video board thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's here's a thing from the dugout. You've been crushing us for 20 years, something like that. The season's not over. You don't normally see, if he's not inner circle Hall of Fame, most of the stuff does tend to happen towards the end of the year.
Yeah. No, I know he's not inner circle Hall of Famer or anything like that, but he has been with the Cardinals for 20 years and he has been pretty good for those 20 years. And that just doesn't happen. Right. And I'm not saying they need to roll out some carpet for him or donate or whatever it might be, but just a little surprised we're not seeing much of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're probably right. Like if he was having, a 3.5 ERA season and getting close to 200 innings pitched again, and there were conversations about Adam Wainwright coming back again next year, and he was having to address those questions, it might be different. And I don't know about you, but I've kind of noticed that no one has asked him about 2024, at least in quite a while. That's come on my radar.
Yeah. Well, normally he has fully announced his retirement, multiple times. And yeah, he'd have to be absolutely dominating for it to be the case. I mean, you and I have kind of joked that like, what's going to happen is he's going to have like 3 really good starts in September. And then we're going to hear him say, this didn't go the way I wanted. I think I've got a better year in me. And he's going to sign like a $3 million year contract with the Cardinals next year. And then the Cardinals get to say, see, we needed 3 pitchers. We got one of them. It's Wainwright. And then we all have to go, yay, Wainwright,
Yeah. And I don't want to we kind of talked about this at the end of last season on the show, was giving Adam Wainwright $17.5 million in his age 41 season, even after the season he was coming off, the best idea for the Cardinals, who already had a Swiss cheese, pitching core. And I think obviously now when we're sitting back almost 6 months, into the 5 months into the season, obviously we look pretty smart there. That being said, not, placing an almost $20 million bet on a 41-year-old pitcher is not a lot of teams would have done that, I guess, is what I'll say. Even if they were a franchise stalwart, type legacy act.
Yeah. Well, he was worth almost 3 WAR last year and almost 4 WAR the year before. At the end of last year, he obviously had struggled a lot, but there was some hopefulness around it that he could repeat that sort of production. And guys don't normally take pay cuts when they're coming off of a 3 WAR season. So you can see like how it got to that. But yeah, obviously in hindsight, like if you're asking me would I bet against a 41 to 42-year-old pitcher, I'm going to say I will bet against that every year. Like it's just, you're more likely to hit that bet than not.
Yeah.
But
anyways, it's been a bummer. I love Adam Wainwright. I can't wait for him to get his red jacket. I can't wait for him to maybe kick Brad out of the booth and
that
come
country
in and
record album,
get the country record out. I would really love. I don't know. We need some more personality in the booth right now.
Yeah, I've actually been meaning to like throw that on our agenda. We can touch on it real quick now if you want. Like you and I were both pretty, like I think a lot of Cardinal fans, we were pretty like bored by the Chip Caray selection. And I did want to say, like, while that sort of rings true, that it is he's not exactly an exciting broadcaster. I will say though that he's been fine. I know that's not like, I don't want to like damn with faint praise here, but like he's been better than I expected, frankly. That said, my expectations were pretty low, but like he hasn't been, he's just like blended in, which is really, I think, you'll take that over being obnoxious or like, he hasn't really done any of the stuff that I was worried about, like complaining about the current state of the game, all that stuff that we were worried about. I have really caught very little of that. Now, he's not like super fun and exciting or anything like that, but like as far as having to replace your all-time, your beloved broadcaster last minute, like it's gone pretty well, I think.
Yeah, I agree with your statement for the most part. He has not been as much of a stick in the mud about the current game as I expected, and as how he came off from the Braves, maybe, or doing Braves broadcast. Maybe he took that note and improved himself. But I think the bigger problem for me has been it is just so boring. He lacks personality. He seems almost like an automaton, and then he tries to sprinkle in some quirkiness or some uniqueness, and I don't know, it always kind of lays flat. And then I think having listened to Brad Thompson for as long as we have now, I have his kind of we listen to these guys every night and it just starts to wear on you. And Brad Thompson kind of says the same things over and over again. Chip Caray kind of says the same things over and over again. And when Jimmy Ballgame is announcing, at least it's something different. Now, Jimmy is always on a tangent and it's some bullshit that makes no sense or something that's slightly racist or there's always some, at least it's slightly more interesting. But the Brad and
Let's be
Chip
careful
games.
here. Let's not say slightly racist is slightly more interesting.
Oh, I'm just saying it's not. I'm fine with saying that. It's at least
Yeah.
it's not this milk toast
Sure.
nothingness.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not saying I want my announcer to be racist, slightly racist, or however you'd like to characterize some of the words that he's used this year. Inappropriate, but at least
Mhm.
he's speaking. It's coming from a place of somewhat authenticity, even if the core of that authentic thought is garbage, I guess is
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I do know what you're trying to say, and I won't press too hard on it. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I wonder too how much of this is just colored by it being bad baseball. Like it's all part of like you're watching like a package, right? You've got the game, you've got the production, you've got the broadcast, and it all starts with the field, right? And there's only so much these guys can do when game after game it's like, well, shit,
Sure.
there goes the lead. Like
The
it,
the,
it's
the
got to be,
Mets
yeah,
the Mets are in the same boat as the Cardinals right now, and Keith and I can't think of the Ron Darling. They at least come off as authentic presenters, and they're not just reading from a script that they've reread 6 times. So that's, anyways. I don't want to dwell on this too much.
yeah,
Honestly, I watch a lot of like opposing broadcasts, especially like when the Padres are playing. I'm a huge Don Orsillo fan, so I'll skip over and watch those games a lot, or sorry, those broadcasts a lot. But yeah, it's just been it just hasn't been
yeah,
great. And again, I think the main complaint or my main issue with going from Dan McLaughlin to Chip Caray is that Dan McLaughlin was so good at tying in the entire 150-year history of the Cardinals
yes,
with the current game. And I think Chip uh, obviously has a history of the Cardinals, but that was Dan's strong suit, and I miss that.
yeah. He can remember like a single pitch from a regular season game in like 1984, and
Right.
tie it back into what's happening now. So yeah, and Chip will be like kind of right about Cardinal history, but he's also been wrong sometimes, or like in the ballpark of accurate, and you can just kind of tell that he doesn't really have that experience. And I mean, why would he, other than his obvious family tie? But he hasn't worked for the Cardinals. He hasn't, he's been
No.
so. Um, yeah, we'll see. I this started as me essentially complimenting them, but it's the what do they call it? The soft bias of low expectations, right?
Sure.
So, okay. Well, so I guess to wrap back to what we were talking about, hopefully Wayno ends this season well and we get a couple more wins, even though we don't care about it. Obviously, it is something that a lot of people and maybe Adam Wainwright cares about, So if he cares about it, I hope he gets it. Let's go in and talk about some other stuff. So we want to run through some recent player updates. We've gotten some good news from the injury front. Uh, Ryan Helsley, who, I think we both were. A lot of people were really worried about the specter of Tommy John. Seems to have avoided it for now and is actually hoping to be activated at some point, possibly even this week or this weekend. So that's a complete turnaround from the way I was feeling about it. Of course, it's hard not to be a little pessimistic. You know how often this goes, where they decide to do rehab and instead of surgery. And, is he just buying more time on the clock, or is he actually like it's not a problem? I don't know. They're acting like it's not a problem, and he hopefully will be back soon. And so I'd love to get 1 month of good Ryan Helsley to set up next year.
Yeah, we'll see. I would assume, as we've already talked about, that the Cardinals are being extremely cautious, and the priority over everything should be health. But yeah, he's had a couple of appearances in the minor leagues. They haven't gone particularly well. That's not a surprise, not anything. I'm not really worried about his results right now. It's more about, is the ball coming out and is it going 100 miles per hour plus? But yeah, it's good to have him back, or he should be back here soon, probably maybe around the time this episode drops.
Yeah. Also, Nolan Gorman was activated from the IL and he's back, and they've been cautious with him. It's not like he's starting every day, but again, like this next month is about these younger guys getting their reps and staying healthy. And
yeah,
I mean, we haven't really talked about him for a little while. He's really settling into one of these this sort of streaky player, I think. But one of the real bright spots of 2023 for the St. Louis Cardinals, right? Like there was a lot of people, and myself included to some degree, this offseason saying Nolan Gorman is the guy that the Cardinals should trade. And part of that is because he just had a lot of value. He's a high, expectations prospect, and we can see what the future of him might look like. But now that he's actually doing it, now that he's playing a pretty good second base and he's hitting the ball really hard, and these hot streaks that he goes on where he looks like the best hitter in baseball, I'm pretty glad that they still have Nolan Gorman.
Yeah.
And of all of the people who can play second base that we think will be traded in this offseason, he's the one that I am the most hopeful that they don't trade, even if, he would get the most value in return.
Yeah, I still don't think he should be untouchable by any means, because the Cardinals need a lot of help on the pitching side. A lot needs to happen there. But yeah, I mean, he has done what so many high-end prospects fail to do, and that's have a better sophomore season than rookie season.
Yep.
That's improve essentially everywhere. He's walking better. He's hitting the ball harder. He's playing better defense. He's running the bases much better this year. If you extrapolate that over the next few years, again, he's only 23. You have to be excited about the future. That being said, like, I don't think that the Cardinals defense is the number one reason why they are where they are. But if the Cardinals sign Kevin Kiermaier in the offseason and decide to move away from Nolan Gorman and want Jordan Walker to be more of a DH and improve the defense as a whole while also improving the pitching, I would not be mad about that.
Sure.
I don't think that that's the worth. Like, you need to reduce the runs that you're giving up. And if that comes through pitching and defense combined in some form or fashion, I think that that's pretty smart. But yeah, I love Nolan Gorman. He's really fun to watch. I'll make sure to button that, but I don't know.
Hey, almost as you said his name, Jordan Walker just hit a 3-run bomb. And
I call him Big Slugger.
Big Slugger just hit a 3-run bomb.
Let's go.
So, that's my big slug. That's my big slugs out there. Yep. All right. Yeah, of course, I agree with you. No one is untouchable. At the end of the day, the Cardinals need to acquire via trade a high-level starter, and Gorman remains one of your most valuable trade pieces. So if it comes to that, you could do a lot worse than Brendan Donovan as your starting second baseman. So it would be fine, but for my enjoyment, it's been so much fun watching Gorman, and he really is a bright spot of the season. 116 WRC plus, sophomore year, 23-year-old, 16% better than the rest of the league. If it wasn't for injury, and he still could, he almost has a 30 home run season. He's at 24 right now, a month left to play. You could easily see that be 27, 28. And if he hadn't missed some time, like 30 bombs, improve your defense at second base. Like, it's a good story for a sophomore year.
He seems basically guaranteed to be a 30 plus home run average second baseman, for the majority of his 20s. And that's rare and awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Looking down in the minors, Tekoah Roby, he made his first start in Double-A. 3 innings, 6 strikeouts, and an earned run. So obviously he's the Jim, so to speak, of the trade deadline. Sagassi's trying to make that case, but at least at the point of the trade deadline, Roby was the big piece, immediately slotting in as a top 5 Cardinal prospect, a hopeful future mainstay of the rotation. this was our first look at him. I know you and I don't consider ourselves big prospect hounds, but you can still. I watched a lot of this start.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on it?
I mean, holy crap. This guy just came back from injury. That was
Yeah.
my first thought. He looked great. The fastball had more life on it than I expected. And the breaking ball is legit.
Yeah.
Like, like super legit. I don't even know what to say, but it falls off the table. It's on the same plane as the fastball. And it reminds me of Liberatore as far as the break, except for it's snappier.
Mm-hmm.
He throws it harder, and obviously it's coming from the right side. But yeah, I watched that start from him, and he looked fantastic. We said this already, but I think he's probably going to be competing for a major league roster spot next season.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not in the bullpen in the starting rotation, depending. Looks really good. Obviously, he only went 3 innings. He's coming back from a shoulder injury. As long as that rehabs normally and he has a normal offseason, I think let's start the hype train. I'm there already.
Yeah.
It's exciting. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think nothing but really good.
And
Let's see more.
I don't know if you saw this. I actually think you did. It's later on the outline, but Harrison Bader has been placed on waivers
Yeah.
from the Yankees, and he's mostly been hurt during his time with them. He's had some really good moments for them, but I think uh, considering what the Cardinals got out of Montgomery, and then now what they got out of the trade for Montgomery, which did include Stratton, but it was
Yeah.
Montgomery was the big piece of that trade.
100%.
You got to be happy with this little moment of wheeling and dealing from Mozeliak and crew, turning a season and a half of Harrison Bader into a full season essentially of Montgomery, and then maybe one of our rotation mainstays.
Yes.
And Sagasay. So
If you pull up the trade web in 6 or 7 years and the accrued WAR added, the wins above average added from this trade, it's going to be heavily in favor of the Cardinals because of everything you just said. So yeah, no,
yeah,
it's been great. Mo deserves credit.
yeah. All right. So, well, here I'll let you intro this next part you want to talk about.
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about. So September is coming. We're recording on August 30th, so it's sneaking up on us. That means that the Cardinals can add a pitcher and a hitter to their big league roster as rosters expand. If you don't remember, this is a newer thing. The roster goes only from 26 to 28, and one of those can be a pitcher as you add. So, anyways. I wanted to talk about who the Cardinals should call up. I think that there's a lot of interesting names. And I kind of have a couple that I picked, and I'm curious of who you think the Cardinals should pick up. So I've decided Ben's picks are Moises Gomez
Mm-hmm.
and Gordon Graceffo. My thought with Gomez is that he's been a little hotter recently. He's put up an 851 OPS in the last 18 games. The dude is 24 years old. He's getting older and older. Not that he's cooked by any means, but these games don't matter. Kind of curious what this guy can do in the big leagues. He's obviously got real time power, and if we give him 60 at bats in MLB, how does he perform? So I'd be curious of that. Where those at bats come, I don't think it really matters. Give some other guys some time off and get him in there. Maybe it's even just DHing. Luke and Baker's gotta fight for at bats too. However that works, should be fine. And then with Graceffo, Graceffo's also, he's slightly on the older side of that little group of pitchers in AA and AAA. He's 23. He's been decent the last couple of months in AAA. And I really think, the Cardinals are talking about bringing in 3 pitchers. I just don't think that's going to happen. And I think that the Cardinals are going to need to rely on a Graceffo, a Liberatore, a McGreevy, one of those guys. And I say you pick your favorite flavor and get that guy some big league time, maybe as a multi-inning relief, maybe as a backup to a starter who's you don't predict is going to go very long, but really just get him in the bigs throwing and kind of, get his feet wet, get a cup of coffee, and hopefully that makes his leap into MLB next year or the year after, whenever that is, smoother, and you kind of have an idea of how he'll perform. But yeah, I'm going to tag Graceffo and again, Moises Gomez.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to argue with both of those picks, honestly. Like, I think Moises Gomez probably, there was talk of him breaking the team out of spring training this year.
Right.
Was it he led the minors in home runs last year?
Yeah.
Right. So like what it's kind of like what like Luke and Baker, right? Like I don't know what else this guy needs to do to get a shot at the major league level. Also, speaking of, Baker hit his first big league home run.
That
Congrats to
was a
him.
tank.
Yeah, it was fun. So it's hard to argue with against Gomez because everyone after that, it's like, well, hey, let's ride the hot hand and let's get Sagasay up here and just see what happens,
Yeah.
But I think Gomez is the obvious choice. There's some reps in the outfield. Tyler O'Neill's only playing every other day or every third day right now, so let's get Gomez up there and let's just see if it sticks and get some at bats.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's this kind of soup of like mildly performing starting pitchers who we've all been hyped about, but none of them are really breaking out this year. And you chose Graceffo. I was thinking Michael McGreevy would be interesting. He was doing at the beginning of the year, he did really, really well at AA, mid twos FIP before earning his promotion to the major league level. Or I'm sorry, to AAA. And he's had an all right season
Right.
at AAA, but he's that pitch and contact kind of guy. He fits what the Cardinals have often found success with, and let's get him up here and see what some innings at the big league level. You could it's kind of the same as Graceffo, right? It's like maybe he's a long man for next year,
right?
There's plenty of innings, and let's let a couple of these guys try it out at the big league level. So I'll go with McGreevy, but I'm being pretty passive here because I think there's a lot of guys that are all kind of the same after Gomez. McGreevy I think would be fun.
Yeah, I think the only other player that would be an interesting call up is Ivan Herrera, just because he's been great at both levels, AAA and MLB this season. But I think the question is, do you want him just catching every day at AAA, or do you want him spending time with the big league staff? What makes the most sense? Is he taking over the catcher position next year? I have to assume the Cardinals have some awareness of who's going to be backing up Wilson Contreras next year. And maybe that's Andrew Kisner again because he's hitting the ball. Even though he's
I know we've
very below average defender.
We've talked enough about this, but I truly I think it's good. It's what's going to happen. We're going to ride into next year. Contreras and Kisner, and then Herrera's the backup at AAA.
And this leads me into the segment that we're going to talk about after the break. But I want to talk about Ollie and Mo, but we can go to break first.
All right, yeah. So we've got more to talk about. We're really going to dig in on Ollie and Mo here.
Yeah.
Oh no! Don't be mean to me. So, but
you just have that impression. It's just always right there. You just can pull it out at any stop.
What do you mean impression?
Hate
particularly Muppety in that last one. Well, when you really think about it, ultimately. So anyway, ultimately, if you enjoy this show, we want to remind you that we are supported on Patreon. The show is listener supported. If you enjoy what we do, the work that we put into it week in and week out, consider joining the Patreon. Patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. Subscribers at any level get access to our private Discord. We call it the Bird Scored, baby. We're having a good time in there.
Tweet.
Despite the doldrums of the season, some good people in there talking about good things. Check it out. Patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. Support your favorite creators and get in on a fun little community. If you are looking for another way to support us, consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. We haven't gotten any of those for a while. We really appreciate it every time someone takes the time to do it. So thank you in advance if you do pull out your phone and and spend a few minutes doing that. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
so.
we need to beat out, C70 and Kelsey and some of these other, stupid other baseball podcasts. So give us a review so we rise above.
That's right. That's really what we're in this for is crushing our friends. And, we're next comes the annexation plan.
Who needs Derek Gould? Come on now.
Yeah, come on. And our path to bringing down Derek Gould is through positive Apple Podcast reviews.
There we go.
Join the revolution. That's the branding we need, Vin.
Yes.
Join the revolution. Join the Talking About Birds Patreon and leave us positive reviews.
That's a good call to action right there. I'm feeling motivated.
Well, if you want to join the revolution, add your voice to it. You can do that, or you can follow us on other social media. So, Ben, where can people find us elsewhere?
Yeah, follow us on Twitter at Talk About Birds. We're on Instagram at Talking About Birds. You can email us any questions, concerns, criticisms, discussion points, whatever you might have, to talkaboutbirds@gmail.com. We're on TikTok. Check us out on TikTok. By the way, the podcast can be listened to on Spotify if you prefer Spotify. Check us out there. And you can find all that information, new shows, everything at talkingaboutbirds.com. And again, that's talkingaboutbirds.com.
Talkingaboutbirds.com.
Yeah.
Join the revolution.
Oh, no. Okay, wait. I don't like this anymore.
Too bad it's happening.
No. Wouldn't it be cool if everybody was just chill?
All right. Let's talk about something that's been kind of over the news over the past few days. Ben, will you kind of break this down for us, for those who maybe haven't caught on to it, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah. So just to make sure we're all on the same page, obviously Paul DeJong was traded to the Blue Jays. I think he was in Toronto for about 19, 20 games, something like that, was DFA'd. And in the interview that Paul DeJong gave to ESPN last week, he had mentioned that essentially as soon as he was DFA'd, that Farhan Zaidi was GM, or the president of baseball ops for the Giants, was ringing him up. Brandon Crawford had just gone down with injury, and they need a shortstop. And as we all know, Paul DeJong is many things, but one of those is steady Eddie as far as defensive shortstop. So anyways, he's over there. He's playing for Gabe Kapler. And in an interview, he mentioned some things that I thought were pretty interesting. He first off, and the reason I add credence to what Paul DeJong is saying here is because first off, he was with the Cardinals for a while. He knows this org as well as anybody does. And I think Paul DeJong is a smart guy. Now, maybe sometimes too smart, but I think he is a thoughtful person, and he organizes his thoughts and he presents them calmly and reasonably, which for a baseball player is that's good.
Low bar, but
yeah. Not to be too mean to our boys. But anyways, first off, he mentioned the importance of having a manager with big league experience, referencing his preference for Gabe Kapler's approach in the dugout and the locker room, basically saying that Gabe Kapler is not up in my business, so to speak, is let me get my work done, and understands the rigors of 162 games at the big league level. And obviously, you look at the managers that Paul DeJong has had, and we have Mike Matheny, clearly big league player. And then back-to-back players, what's his face? Schilt never even played professionally. And Ali Marmol washed out, I believe, in AA. Maybe he made it to AAA. But I think that was a light, I don't even think it was a jab. I think that was Paul DeJong just stating what he felt, and having experienced, both versions, has a preference over one. So I guess my first thought to that is there credence in there? Is this something that other players are frustrated about? Or is this Paul DeJong just kind of saying, like, I'm happy to be in San Francisco? The other thing that I want to talk about in this interview is that he referenced the Giants' ability to use their entire roster and put the right player in the optimal position to produce their best. Basically, talking about the idea, Brandon Crawford is going to come back at some point. He's a left-handed hitting, defensively gifted shortstop. Paul DeJong is a right-handed hitting, and he essentially is saying that I believe that the Giants are going to put me in the best position, and I think I still have a place on this roster. What was that guaranteed or not? I don't know. Anyways, my question, I guess, or the whole thing, the point I want to put on this, and why I think this interview is interesting, is: are we seeing Ali Marmol be as dynamic as he can possibly be this season? Should the Cardinals have deployed a more flexible approach to pitching, similar to the Giants? The Giants had pitching issues all year. They have Logan Webb and a bunch of guys. And they have deployed some type of opener or some type of dynamic pitching arsenal 50 times this season, and we're in game 130, something like that. So what is that, like a third of the time ish, something like that. Anyways, I say all of that. What do you think that means? Should we be more critical of Ali? And I guess the other question is: this Ali or Mo who's kind of driving the ship around this conversation?
Yeah, it's an interesting interview. And I echo your sentiment around, like, trusting Paul DeJong, and he didn't have to say all this stuff. I do think he was being very candid, while and choosing his words carefully. And he doesn't owe the Cardinals anything.
No.
I actually, it's nice to hear some of his perspective on stuff. On that latter point, I think this is always a tough one, because the results are not in the manager's control, right?
Right.
The choices on who you put where is in their control, but they can't will Giovanni Gallegos into not having a terrible season, or
Sure.
not terrible season, but a bad season. That even with Cabrera might have been used perfectly, he kind of fell apart this year and was ultimately DFA'd, right? Like, it's really hard to diagnose. Like, the bullpen is where people get like the most angry at managers. And for the most part this year, like, there's been moments that I've thought, like, man, Ali, you left a guy in a little too long,
Yeah.
or why'd you go to this guy instead of this guy? But I have not had any glaring issues with, like, the bullpen specifically and his management of it. They have been bad because they are not performing. Like, he has followed a relatively consistent script that you would think most people would. It's the generally considered recipe for success, and it just hasn't worked over and over and over because of poor performances. Now, are those poor performances because they're put in bad spots, or is it? I don't know. It's like
Well,
it. But I don't think Marmol is a bad bullpen manager. That said, I have been a fan of the idea of the opener. I know you hate it. So are you starting to change your mind on that? Or do you think that would have made more sense for the Cardinals this year?
I hate it. I think it's bad aesthetically, but I am not in the Cardinals front office or in the dugout, and I am not charged with winning games. The St. Louis Cardinals pitching staff is they've put up 12.7 FWAR this season. The San Francisco Giants pitching staff has put up 12.2 FWAR this season. One of those teams are in a much better place
Yeah.
regarding the playoffs and the standings. The Cardinals have a better offense than the Giants. And all I'm saying is, whether I like it aesthetically or not, the Cardinals should be, or do they lack creativity? If Steven Matz is having trouble in the first inning, time after time, and they're playing the Padres and they got three or four righties to lead off against Matz, does it make sense to have a Drew Verhagen go against those first righties and then bring Matz in and be a little bit more creative into the way that you deploy them and being less rigid? I'm not saying that that's what I would do. I'm not saying, but I am saying you're looking at two teams who are constructed somewhat similarly, at least on the pitching staff side, and one team is a lot more successful. And I think that it is clear to me from the outside looking in that the Giants are more advanced analytically than the
Yeah.
Cardinals, and therefore more successful.
They've done it a couple of years in a row now, where you're like, why this team should not be good, and they continue to do it. And I mean, all the way back to their dynasty, so to speak, their three championships. Like, yeah, there were some stars on that team, but they were kind of stars outside of Buster Posey. They were kind of stars because of the success of the team, not necessarily like as MVP level
Right.
players on the field. So that's what they've been doing for a long time. Um, I mean, I think obviously I think the Cardinals could be doing it a lot better, and I think that does come down from Mo. I think we're all pretty aligned on at this point that
Yeah.
Marmal is an extension of Mozeliak and Cruz perception on how the game should be played. And, we'll never know for sure. At least we probably won't know for a long time exactly what went down with Mike Schilt. But we do know that it was essentially he wasn't willing to do exactly what Mozeliak and Crew wanted him to do.
Yeah.
And then, Marmal kind of come in and be like, oh, I see. Okay, you can be fired like suddenly for
Yes.
disagreeing with this crew.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't blame Marmal, but I think we were all kind of sold on him in the sense that he was going to be this hyper dynamic, play the numbers, pinch hit or sub somebody out on the pitching or position player side when it makes sense, when it's a high leverage point in the game. And I think, up until the past few weeks, I think the Cardinals have been trying to win. Maybe past month, I think the Cardinals have been trying to win, and I don't think we've seen that. So I think it's perfectly legitimate to question whether or not Mo and therefore Ali Marmal have the creativity, the ability to be dynamic, the ability to use advanced analytics on the level that the best front offices and management groups in the league. And I think that I don't know. I think they should be criticized for that. And
yeah.
I think that especially when you're seeing this massive deficiency in your pitching staff, the fact that you kind of keep your head down and stick to the plan, um, and kind of jerk around some other pitchers that are on the periphery of the 26 man. Um, I don't know. It makes me question what those meetings are like, what those conversations are
Yeah.
like, and they seem to be behind.
I agree 100%. I mean, it's they're behind the league on almost everything pitching related,
Yeah,
right? Like it seems like they can kind of develop high-end relievers. We've had enough of them over the last few years come through to feel some degree of confidence that like your Ryan Helsleys and your Jordan Hicks, most teams don't have one of those guys, let alone two. So there's something that the organization is doing well with turning these, fireballing right-handers out. But after that, it pretty much collapses. We've been talking about it all
yeah,
year, right? And so there's clearly a deficiency both in the development and the usage of pitching. It's this year is just when it finally all truly collapsed and it
yeah.
wasn't able to be made up for with patch jobs and sudden explosions of your offense like Albert
Right.
Pujols.
And then, to the other point of Paul DeJong's interview, like, is Ali Marmol just annoying? Or is that Paul DeJong just kind of saying, oh, I actually really like playing for Gabe Kapler. Ali's good too, but I really like playing for Gabe. And, who knows?
Yeah, it's vague enough where you could give him a ton of outs to say he's not necessary. It doesn't have to be an insult to Ali Marmal to be a compliment to
Right.
Gabe Kapler. But it certainly reads that way, right? Like when
It's not great. Yeah.
you say it's nice to play for someone with big league experience, and the guy you just came from is someone who does not have it. Like I mean, it sure seems like a shot at Marmal. And I think that's more likely just it's a personal preference, because some guys may want that and some guys may not, or may not care.
Right.
Paul DeJong has kind of been through the ringer of like the major league experience over the last handful of years, sent down to the minors a ton, really high highs, like the all-star, being an all-star at one point and being a core part of some deep playoff runs earlier in his career. And then the last few years have been a real big struggle. Um, it's a very unique experience, and I'm sure he
Right.
has a lot of opinions on management and communication style. And I'm sure some things worked really well for him and some of it didn't work well. I wouldn't go as far as to say that is a strong judgment on Marmol objectively, but subjectively, absolutely. It sounds like he did not like playing for Marmol.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's interesting. And now it's, it's kind of a moot point because the season is dead, but
yeah.
curious.
Well, but I mean, I don't know. I think you and I have generally been like critical of Marmol, but generally also believe that he's still the right guy for the job, but it's little things like this. It does chip away, right? When you start to hear more and more players saying like, I didn't really like playing for him. It makes you think like, we've talked about this earlier in the year too, is like, do the Cardinals need to just go and get one of those like 65-year-old dudes who've been in the game forever and they don't necessarily have new ideas, but they can follow directions and give you a good hoorah speech instead of whatever it is Marmol's trying to do.
Well, I think, what is some of the best managers in Bob Melvin, Terry Francona, Buck Showalter, Bruce Bochy. They're all player managers, and they're old guys that have been doing it forever. And I don't know, again, I'm not saying Ali is good or bad, but I don't think has done a great job making the players feel good this year.
Yeah.
And I think he calls it accountability. And I think that there's a time for that and there's not a time for that. And we don't need to dredge up the things that have already happened this season. And maybe some of that communication was also from the front office, but it's kind of weird. I don't know. Tony La Russa, obviously, with all his problems, he would always take the blame or lash out at the media if they were criticizing his players. And, he's got a couple of World Series and is one of the most winningest managers of all time. I don't know. I think we should question it. I'm not saying ship him out just yet, and maybe he can learn and grow from the season, but it should be a topic of conversation.
Certainly feels like we need Marmol to stop doing post-game pressers at this point because or he needs to get a new script from the communications department or something. But like all this, this is not us. We got to find a way to win. We got to find a way to, we just got to find a way. Just find our way. We got to do the thing. Like it's the same thing over and over and over. And I know it's a tough spot for him because they just keep losing, and you have to go and do that press conference. But I'd love to actually hear the reality at this point. Just like, hey, the guys are tired. It's been a long season. We're trying to play hard, but we're also trying to stay healthy or something.
We're also deploying Casey Lawrence twice a week. So what do you want me to do?
Yeah,
obviously he's not going to say that. That would be more of his patented accountability. But I don't know. Anyways,
well, I think no matter for better or worse, 2024 will be a Marmol season. Now, does it go after that? I think we'll find out.
That's going to be a big question.
Yeah, I don't think it's a sure thing.
No.
All right, what next? So we've got some a couple series coming up. Kind of a tale of two seasons here. We've got 3 games against the Pirates, which we've seen them a lot. Maybe this is a chance to really make up some ground in the competition of who's going to finish last in the NL Central, the Pirates or the Cardinals. Yeah. But I don't know if you've been paying attention. Caray Hayes, I know you're a big fan, has been seemed to have been really stepping up recently. He's a big part of their future, so maybe we'll see some fun. At one point he was like the most hyped guy in the minors, and then early in his career, then injury has just continued to derail. But he's a fun player, and I know O'Neal Cruz is out, but you can see a world where that left side of O'Neal Cruz and Caray Hayes will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, Cabryan's awesome. He's going to be a 2020 perennial guy with perennial Gold Glove. He's just got to lift the ball a little bit more. But yeah, he's been super hot since coming off the IL. But yeah, I don't think we need to hit on the Pirates too much. We've seen them a bunch recently. But yeah, the Cardinals are currently before this Padres Cardinals game on Wednesday is over. The Cardinals are currently 3 games behind Pittsburgh. So if they can sweep, you're feeling pretty good about that record holding up. But right now, it's really not looking good. And I don't think the Cardinals are going to sweep that series. So that is what we're paying attention to. But look out, those Pirates, they're coming.
Yep. And then after that, we go to Atlanta for a 3-game series against the Braves, a juggernaut of a team.
I was reading about this the other day, Nate. The Braves have the most runs scored in baseball right now. They have given up the second fewest runs. They have the fewest in the National League, the second fewest in baseball overall. And I don't know how often that happens. Maybe this is something that we can find out. Only the Mariners have fewer runs given up allowed. But I think that's really all you need to know. They have the best offense in baseball and essentially the best run prevention in baseball. And they show no signs of slowing down.
No, they don't. And all like this, that I don't know. I haven't looked at it, what their upcoming like free agency looks like, but pretty sure everyone who matters on that team right now is signed for the next like 5 years or more. And they've got some pretty interesting prospects too. So yeah, they're a really good team and they're going to be really good for a long time.
They have 10 players with a WRC plus above 110.
Nice. Now I saw a thing the other day. The Cardinals have 6, I think, over 110.
The Cardinals have had problems sequencing all year with RISP and whatnot, but they have the 7th best offense in baseball according to WRC plus. The offense is still there. Obviously, without Newt and Gorman the last few weeks, it hasn't looked great. But their offense is still there. It just your team looks really streaky when you have 0 pitching and you can only rely on your offense.
If you only win games on offense, it's going to be you need to win those 1-0, 2-1, 3-1 games. The Cardinals just aren't winning this year. But yeah, the Braves are amazing. Acuna is on pace for some record-setting years. Although Betts is starting to catch up as far as the MVP race goes, which is fun for up until really this last month. It was like Acuna is probably going to win unanimously. Now there's a little bit of competition, and Betts is making it interesting. But my money's still on Acuna, but it won't surprise me if Betts wins.
And I'll just say you have to pick these players for one season to build your team around. You're trying to win in 2024. Do you pick Acuna Jr. and Matt Olson or Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman?
I close your eyes and just grab one because you're happy with either. I guess I'm probably going Acuna and Olson. Even though Acuna has had his injury problems, it's still a considerably younger pairing than Betts and Freeman. And I guess even though it's not really fair to them because they've not had this, but like I'm a little worried about injury with those guys as they've gotten older. And Olson still feels like he has a like 60 home run season in him that we haven't seen yet. And so I'll take that upside because I think we know what the upside of Freeman and Betts is. And it's obviously incredible MVP level, but I want that 60 bomb season from Olson, the 40 bomb season from Acuna, and his like 80 steals that he's going to end up with.
Yeah, it's I mean I think I agree with that if I had to choose, although I love Mookie Betts so much.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, anyways,
Mookie Betts is my maybe my favorite player in baseball, but if I'm just on the field, I think I'm going the other way.
Yeah. So obviously Ronald and Matt Olson have been fantastic this year, both MVP level seasons, Ronald far and away. Sean Murphy, we haven't talked about him in a while, but he is having a lights out season. He is at 4.5 FWAR, 20 bombs, great defense. He's been great. Then Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, Michael Harris. These are just like the how you fill out a roster with like superstar after superstar. And their pitching is getting healthier right now. So, the good thing about watching the Braves is you get to watch the Braves. And hopefully we get to see a Spencer Strider start. But yeah, it's going to be really tough. They're a good team who is playing exceptionally well currently. So, good luck.
Perfect mix. If you're a fan of the Cardinals, getting better options in the lottery, this is the series for you.
Yes.
I'll say Mookie and Freddie, way more fun than Ronald and Matt. Just from a first name standpoint. So
Ronnie and Maddie.
Ronnie, I guess Ronnie and Maddie? No.
Yeah.
No, that's worse.
Are you giving, if you had to give the award out today, would Spencer Strider be your Cy Young winner in the National League?
He's an interesting one. Obviously, that strikeout rate is insane. But he does give up some runs. Yeah, probably like that K rate is wild.
It is.
So probably, I know Blake Snell is starting to make an argument. We saw a little bit of that. He's leading I think all of baseball in ERA.
Yeah.
And he's striking guys out too. So, but Strider is just, and he's got that stash. He's like 5'10", and he's throwing. I saw who was it? It's like a 6'7" guy who throws 100. I forget who it was, but that what's super popular on social media where they do like you put the two guy like the
the overlays,
and it was Spencer Strider up next to like. I forget who it was. I think it was a closer, but anyway, it was like showing like mechanics of a 100-mile-per-hour pitch. And it's just so interesting seeing this dude who's like a foot shorter than the other guys throwing as hard. Makes me think of like Tim Lincecum. But I think that Strider's mechanics are probably going to be a little longer lasting than Tim Lincecum. But
he's got that lower half that just makes everyone go crazy.
Is that booty power? Yeah. He's a real thigh guy.
Ooh, mommy. Anyways, yeah. And shout out Zach Wheeler. That has been a low-key amazing signing by the Phillies. He could also snag an NL Cy Young this year. But, anyways, Pirates, Cardinal, or Atlanta. I feel like both of these teams are better than the Cardinals right now. Good luck, guys.
Man, Oviedo, have you seen that since the All-Star break? He has the lowest batting average against in the NL. So
yeah, he looks good. Cool. I mean, we knew
that was coming.
The day of the trade, he's going to be great, but good for him.
All right. Let's run through some league news. There's a couple stories in here that
my goodness.
Let's run through it. What do you got?
Okay, so I'm going to let's talk waiver wire, and I'm just going to blabber on for a second, and then I think we should talk about the Cardinal implications, because I know I've seen Twitter and other social media saying, we need this guy, we need this guy, we need this guy. But something interesting has happened. The waiver wire is coming upon us. Players must be added, I believe, before September to count on the postseason roster. So here are some names. The Angels have placed Lucas Giolito, Matt Moore, Reynaldo Lopez, Hunter Renfroe, Randall Grichuk. Yep, that is the list on waivers. The White Sox have placed Mike Clevinger on waivers. The Yankees have put Harrison Bader and Josh Donaldson on waivers. The Mets have put Carlos Carrasco on waivers. And the Guardians have DFA'd Noah Syndergaard. So obviously that's a lot of names, a lot of implications. I think that a good chunk of those guys will probably affect playoff races in some form or fashion. And we could talk about that till our faces are blue. Hopefully next week we'll have a bunch of news on where these guys all end up. My question to you is, should the Cardinals be interested in any of those names to bring onto their team?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And the Cardinals should, if they do want any of these guys, they have a reasonable chance at getting them. It goes in reverse order of the standings. So Cardinals have,
I think they're fifth or sixth in the waiver wire. Yeah.
So you could expect they probably could get the guy that they want. The other people in the standings that are below them don't really profile as a team that would take a shot at any of these guys. So you could see the Cardinals doing it. So the opportunity is there. Now, that said, generally speaking, no, I'm not particularly interested in most of these guys. The one person I think is possibly worth it is really the biggest name in the list, which is Lucas Giolito. He's going to be a free agent after this season. The Cardinals need starters. He will likely be an affordable option. He's always had that ceiling, and he's had moments of really, or he's looked really good, but he's just consistently failed to put together a good full season. But he would profile as a pretty good, affordable, maybe number 3 starter for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
So why not bring him in, get him a uniform, show him the Cardinal way, and see if he has some success. And then maybe you've built a little bit of a bridge for a good negotiation.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Like, what is there to lose other than paying 1 month of his salary? But whatever. After that, Reynaldo Lopez has had some moments of success as a reliever. We need relievers. You could see that, like, basically the same argument that you make for Giolito being made for him. After that, I like. There was a time when I thought Syndergaard was the next great thing everybody did, but if the Dodgers can't fix him, if none of these teams that he's bounced around can fix him, like, what are we thinking will happen in 1 month with the Cardinals?
Right.
So I'd rather see some of the guys from the Cardinals minor leagues get those starts rather than someone like that. Even though it'd be fun to briefly have Thor as a Cardinal. So yeah, go for it. Why not? But I'm not feeling. I won't be too bummed if like they just let all these guys slide.
Yeah. There's 2 players on this list that I would be interested in. You already named one of them, Giolito, and that would be, like you said, to try to sell him on next year, and bring him in if you identify him as a guy, especially like you said, you get him into the system, and I think that makes it easier to sign him going into next year because at least he knows what he'd be getting himself into. And then I would say Harrison Bader would be the only other player I'd be interested in just because outfield defense, and I think Bader would be an interesting target for the Cardinals going into the offseason. I don't think that they will get him. I do think going for a glove first center fielder makes a lot of sense for this team. But I don't think you need to sell Harrison Bader on St. Louis because he knows it. So if that's a direction you want to go, you can get him in the offseason. I don't think there'd be any reason to go pick him up now. But I agree with you. And I do think outside of the Lucas Giolito sales job that we might be trying to do, any innings should be given to young guys internally in the month of September to get their cup of coffee.
Or Lawrence or
Lawrence or Barnes. Yeah,
Barnes,
whatever. Yeah. Sure. Maybe Verhagen can turn something on.
There you go.
All right, moving down the list. Steven Strasburg has announced that he has retired from baseball. All I have to say about him is he was awesome. I remember his first start. It was on ESPN. It was appointment viewing. Should like a guy with Hall of Fame talent that just could not stay healthy, but somebody who I absolutely love playing or watch playing. Yeah, he's great. Sad to see him go, but I don't know if you read the breakdown of his contract, but he'll be fine. He's getting paid like $30 million a year for the foreseeable future. So good for Strauss for securing the bag, but sad to see him go.
Yeah, and despite all the injuries and all the struggles, he won a World Series, was the NL or was the MVP of the World Series that they won. Like, you could do a lot worse than what he did. So, but yeah, I mean, he was, probably Hall of Fame talent, and just, it's hard. Baseball sports are hard.
Sports are hard.
I also remember his first start. I was playing in a home game, a poker game, and we would like literally get up, all of us, and go watch his half inning and then go back and sit down because it was just like, it was electric. I think he struck out 10 guys in that first start. So it was awesome.
I didn't know they made breaking balls like that when he first came up. It was, it was wild.
Yeah.
Moving on. This is old news at this point, but something we do need to talk about. Shohei Ohtani has been diagnosed with a tear in his UCL, will very likely need Tommy John surgery. This will be his second Tommy John surgery. So obviously will not pitch again this season. And it appears as though he will DH for the remainder of the season. Obviously, big time bummer.
Yeah.
I do think that I believe that he will pitch as a starter again. I know some people are questioning whether or not that will happen. I think that it will. I think the very interesting thing is, what does this do to the offseason that is about Shohei Ohtani?
Yeah.
Obviously, he is going to be as soon as the season ends, he is the number one story in baseball until he signs. And I actually think that this UCL tear is going to add intrigue and more options to his offseason. I think this probably knocks him down from only being able to be signed by like the Mets, Yankees, and Dodgers into a different level of teams. And I don't think the Cardinals are going to sign Shohei Ohtani.
No.
I bet, knowing the Cardinals and how annoying they can be sometimes, they're not even going to present to Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
But something like this does bring him into the tier of teams like the Cardinals, the Mariners, who like the Giants. Oh, the Giants could probably be involved either way because they print money. We'll throw the Cubbies in there. The Marlins have a lot of money to spend. Phillies. I think this knocks them down into the second or third tier. So it's a bummer. I still think he's, obviously Shohei's going to be taken care of financially. He already is taken care of financially.
Yeah, he's the highest paid athlete in the world already. So,
but
he's
I'll
doing
be
okay.
curious to see if this opens that up. There was a background report earlier this week that said Shohei has already selected the team that he wants to go to. Now, that doesn't really mean anything.
Newt's got his fingers in him.
It would be a lot of fun. But like I said, I expect to not even hear a whiff of the Cardinals entertaining bringing Shohei because, why would
especially since he's not a pitcher. I mean, is it really the right thing for the Cardinals? I mean, obviously we would all love it, but like if you're going in this offseason, it's like we could either sign Aaron Nola and Blake Snell or Shohei Ohtani. Like the right move for the Cardinals, unfortunately, is likely like Blake Snell and Aaron Nola, even though, with the understanding that if you want Ohtani to pitch again, you have to lose him for a year.
Yeah.
If not more, right?
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what, whoever's signing him, he can't just keep going with this torn UCL. So
right.
Whoever signs him, you're paying for at least a year without him.
Yeah.
We've seen what Harper's doing, and that's pretty incredible. But even still, it was like almost a full year, and now he's back and he's crushing.
Yeah.
But like you are banking whatever this AAV is for Ohtani, like you're paying 1 year without him.
Right.
And then who knows what he comes back at as a pitcher. Probably great, but
I think I mostly agree with what you're saying, but it should also be noted that Shohei Ohtani is leading the American League in offensive WAR alone. So
yeah,
this is like signing Yordan Alvarez, and Yordan Alvarez can also give you 160 innings of 3.5 ERA.
After missing a year and hopefully recovering in the way that you would expect. But he will also be in his 30s by the time that happens.
Correct.
And it just gets more and more risky, right? After a second Tommy John.
It does.
There's just a whole new level of risk on this. And you could see a world where a team, he probably doesn't sign with this team, but I can imagine a fair amount of teams would only want to sign him as an offensive player. Because you're right, he's incredible. And he's the best. He's both the best offensive player and maybe the best pitcher on the market right now. It's wild. And that's why you were getting those crazy numbers of like, oh, he's going to be 650 million. But now you're signing the best offensive player in the league, which is incredibly valuable. But that's why I was saying, like, the Cardinals, like, is it the best use of your money? Because you could see a world where we would just end up right back where we are this year, even if we had the second best or the best offense in baseball, we still would have like a straight trash row. Well, we'd be like the Angels.
Yeah.
So I don't know, him not being able to give you 150 innings as a great starter fundamentally changes his value for some teams.
Yeah. I will be absolutely shocked if he is not a Dodger. I think it makes all the sense.
Same. That's my guess. And then it's like 3 steps down, and then it's like the Yankees. He decides to stay with the Angels or like the Rangers or something.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, for some reason the Mariners just keep sticking in my mind that he's going to go there.
Well, there is that that long-standing connection between Japanese players and Seattle.
Can you have a better ambassador than Ichiro?
Right.
But yeah, we'll see.
Nintendo.
Say what?
Nintendo. They were part of the ownership group of the Mariners at one point.
I didn't know that. Look at that.
Yeah.
Well, does Shohei have a Switch? I bet he does.
I bet he has a Switch.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to a couple of kooky stories that happened this week on the lovely Coors Field. The Atlanta Braves were playing my Rockies, and two fans swarmed onto the field and made contact with Ronald Acuna Jr., which isn't something that I've seen. Acuna was fine. Obviously, big, strong guy. He can take a little fan kind of bumping into him. Looked like the guy was drunken and crazed and was going for a selfie. And it sounds like a third person tried to run onto the field as well, but was like tackled before he even really got on. But I apologize for Rockies fans. Rockies fans can be terrible.
I was worried because I thought it was you at first. Fits a lot of the profile.
I respect the game, Nate. I'm a lot of things, but I would never attack Ronald Acuna Jr. Also, I am smart enough to be afraid of running at Ronald Acuna Jr.
I can't believe they got.
Luckily, he was in a good mood or whatever. He felt safe because I don't know, of all players in baseball, he would be one of the last I'd want to like freak out and physically attack. Yeah. Anyways, those guys are lucky. They both got arrested, perma bans, I'm sure. And I just got to call out Rocky's security. Like, how did you let two guys get to him before you even get hands on him? I don't know, kind of crazy. Glad Ronald's okay. Don't do that. It's so stupid.
This is one of two bad ballpark stories that we're going to talk about today.
So this one's quite a doozy. I cannot believe this one.
I know.
So there's a game. It was White Sox versus the Guardians, I believe. And this is coming from Peggy Kusinski, reporting out of Chicago. And she says in a tweet earlier this week, as I reported, there was a shooting at Guaranteed Rate Field during a White Sox game. It was an accidental discharge by one woman who was grazed by the bullet. She reportedly snuck the gun in past metal detectors, hiding it in the folds of her belly fat. And while that gun was tucked away in the folds of her belly fat, it somehow went off, shot her, grazing her, and then shot another woman who was sitting next to her in the calf. And what I think is even crazy, that's the craziest part of the story, is that somebody did that. The second craziest part of this story is that the White Sox were asked by the Chicago PD to pause the game to put a little space in the game so that they could investigate. And Jerry Reinsdorf and the White Sox said no. Play on.
That's just Chicago, baby. Keep the game going. It's a shoot. Well, there's shootings every day. We don't need to stop them for.
What the hell are you doing right now?
I don't know. At first I was going for Chicago, and then it like they all do. It just ended up New York.
Yeah, you suck.
Yeah, man. There's so much to unpack in this one. It was quite a ride too, because you hear about a shooting in the ballpark, and that's horrible. America, baby, and then it was like, oh, it was actually bullets fired a mile away that fell into the ballpark, which is also horrifying, but in a totally different way. And then you find out that it's this woman who snuck a gun in through her belly fat. And that's just a twisted version of horrible that I never would have even thought about. I didn't know I needed to be worried about people packing in their folds, and those folds somehow pulling a trigger. There's so much in this.
Not only that, but I am surprised that metal detectors can't find guns through belly fat unless this woman is.
I have a theory on that. I don't know anything beyond what you've read, but I have a theory. Is that I don't know what she was wearing, but we've all seen it where people go through metal detectors. It goes off, and then they're like, look, I don't have anything. And they're like, oh, are you wearing a belt? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, all right, just go on, and like, not a diss on major event security, but I've seen that a dozen times, or like a friend of ours who has a metal hip, you just like, I have a fake hip, and they're like, okay, go on. Right.
Yeah.
Like, you're not searching that part of a person. If they're not wearing anything that you think could like hide a holster, like, people get through metal detectors that bing all the time. So I bet either it didn't bing because, I don't know, it can't go through that, which I would think it could, but I don't know. And then, or it did, and they were just like, whatever, go on,
As a stadium security person, I don't think it is within the realm of responsibility to lift someone's
That's what I'm saying.
belly fat rolls. Yes.
Yeah. Like, if she's just wearing like a t-shirt and jeans and it goes off, and they're like, and she's like, I don't know. They're like, whatever, go on.
I've never considered the utility of these secret compartments that some people have.
Wow.
Not only have I never considered, I cannot believe that someone that we share this earth with thought that was a good idea. They first off had the thought, ooh, I can hide my gun in my belly fat, but I'm going to, not only am I going to do that, but then I'm going to go to a White Sox game with my gun.
Yeah, there's so many layers to this. I'm like, try to not, like, man.
Trying to not what?
I don't know. The fact that there's enough space in there and enough, like the confidence that it's just gonna stay in there like a gelatinous cube, like a sword and shield stuck in a gelatinous cube.
Do you think that she's done this many times?
This can't be the first time. You're not dry run. This isn't a dry run. This is where she's packing.
Yeah, and then what? Like, Eloy hits a home run, and you stand up, and bang.
Yeah, I mean, she's lucky on a million counts. First of all, that she's alive, because it very easily could have shot her, and then, but more importantly, that it didn't kill anyone. Like, can you imagine getting shot through the belly of someone sitting next to you at a White Sox? You're already at a White Sox game,
right?
You're not having a good time. And then you get shot through the belly fat of someone next to you. It might be the most American story of all time. It's incredible, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
Leave your guns at home, people. You're not at that big. You're not that cool and at that big of a risk that you need to have it at any moment. Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
maybe you do, because now I don't know. You got this.
Now I don't know. Also, if it's that far in there and it's that secure, like, can you really retrieve it quickly in a state of emergency? I don't know.
Like, it just is in. It's incredible, not in a positive way, but it's incredible.
All right. Well, luckily,
are other people doing at Talk About Birds?
My God,
do you store things in your belly fat? Valuable, expensive, dangerous items.
Yeah. So anyways,
I knew we were going to talk about this, and I've both been looking forward to and dreading it the whole time.
That's all I got for league news.
Okay, Jesus. All right. Well, we're so long on this episode. We're going to wrap up this one by checking in on a prediction game. We've done this 2 years in a row now, and we tend to do quarterly check-ins. So we're a little past, we're right around like the 75% point of the season. We've got 1 month left. This was a game we did. It was called Draft Day Heroes and Hatchlings Edition. If you're new to the show, at the beginning of the season, we did a draft. We each took 3 people from the 26-man roster and 3 people not on the 26-man roster. And our goal is to see who ends up with the most combined F4 by the end of the year. Last year we did it and we tied, which is wild. And so this year, we will run through it.
Yeah.
So let's see. We'll start with mine, which I had Nolan Arenado, Nolan Gorman, Dylan Carlson. That's my heroes. And my hatchlings, I had Matt Liberator, Gordon Graceffo, and Moises Gomez. So Nolan Arenado is currently at a 2.9 F4. So he's put up almost a full WAR since we last checked in on this. Nolan Gorman is at 2.1. which is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then Dylan Carlson has fallen since the midway point of the season. He's now at 0.2. And Matt Liberatore has doubled his WAR since the midway point. He's actually at 0.6, which is higher than I was expecting. I'm assuming that game against the Rays,
that was probably like half a
multiple
WAR right there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it has to be. He's at 0.6, and like there hasn't been much since then. So I've had a pretty good last quarter though. At the midway point, I was at 4, and I'm now at 5.8.
And hey, if I'm right, we'll see Graceffo and Gomez here shortly.
Right? Yeah. So a chance to add or subtract.
Yeah.
Then you had, I believe, the first overall, and you took Goldschmidt.
MVP.
No, actually, no, I had the first overall. I took Arenado.
Okay.
And you took Paul Goldschmidt, who is having the best season on the Cardinals. He is at a 3.5. You also then took Tyler O'Neill, who actually, even though it doesn't really feel like he's been around, when we last checked in on this, he was at negative 0.3. He's now at 0.6.
Yeah.
So even in limited time, he's been having an impact.
Tyler O'Neill is good.
Yep. You took Tommy Edman next, which at the time felt like quite the coup because I forgot about him. And he's having a good season, but not what it was last year. But he's at 1.8, so it's not bad, right? This is where it gets a little more rough for you. Mason Wynn. He is currently at negative 0.4.
Yeah.
He
could revive that. He could turn that around in this final month.
So that puts you at a total of 5.5. So once again,
wow,
we are neck and neck. So you are 0.3 F4 behind me.
Yeah. So we know Jake Walsh isn't going to come up. Zuniga might come up and add, but I'm really hoping that Tyler O'Neill and Mason Wynn have a strong finish. And really shame on both of us for not picking Lars. That would have been the best pick of the year. And we both whiffed on that. So
I have been wrong about Lars. Basically, I've said it a number of times. I think one of my bigger predictions going into the year that Dylan Carlson would have a better season than Lars.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to be wrong because he's awesome. And it's only been health that has really stalled him from having a true breakout season.
Yeah. Another player who should be back soon, but it's going to be exciting. That is amazing. That this has worked out.
We're so close again. Yeah. Last year, it came, literally the last day of the season, we were tied.
Yes.
And it was Oviedo against Liberatore, and Oviedo was a Pirate. So that was fun. All right. Well, that's it. This episode's super long, but of course, even with no good games, we got plenty to talk about. So we'll be back as always next week. Thank you all for your time. Join the revolution. Join the Patreon.
Oh, God.
Patreon.com/talking about birds.
I think we might not be losing money on this podcast anymore. So thank you to our patrons, our Discord members.
Depends on how you value your time.
Yeah. Which I don't.
Yeah, it's negative.
I mustn't.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be back again next week. And until next week, go Cards.
Let's go.